I'm Ashley. I work at Children's Hospital Erlanger as a child life specialist, and I'm here at the Tennessee Aquarium today, and I'm with my friend Rachel. Rachel, where are we today?
Hi everybody. Today we are above our River Giants exhibit, which is one of our largest exhibits in the River Journey building. It's home to a lot of really big fish from all over the world. So we have a mix of fish from South America, from Asia, and some really big fish from right here in Tennessee as well. Today we're going to be talking about Arapaima. They're one of the biggest fish out there, freshwater fish, and they are from the Amazon in South America.
Arapaima. Are they called anything else, or does everyone call them Arapaima?
Great question. Where they're found natively in South America, there are other names for them, which I'm not very good at pronouncing, but one of them is Piraraku or something very close to that. And that is in a native tongue to the people that live around them in the wild where they're found.
Awesome. So how big do Arapaima get, and how big are they when they're born?
Oh, they go through a lot of growing stages. So when they are born, they're very small, a few inches maybe. And then when they are fully grown adults, they can get up to 15 feet long. That's really big.
They look super big. How old are these Arapaima, or what is an average? How long do Arapaimas live?
Arapaima can live about 20 years. That can be different in the wild versus in an aquarium like us, because out in the wild they face a lot of dangers, and they might have challenges like finding food or changes to their environment. And they're hunted in the wild. So here in the aquarium, they might live longer than they would out in the wild.
So do people hunt them for food?
Yes, they hunt them for food, but they also make things out of their scales, so they use a lot of the animal when they do hunt them.
Okay. Now, what do Arapaima eat? Because they don't eat the fish, their friends in here. What types of things do you guys feed them?
Well, I'll give you two different answers. Here at the aquarium, we feed them mackerel, trout, squid, and a vegetable and vitamin gel that we have to kind of hide inside their squid because they don't always want to eat their vegetables. And then out in the wild, they're known to eat.
Kids don't either.
Yeah, you can probably relate, right? In the wild, they eat pretty much anything they can find. They are mostly carnivores. A lot of you probably know that word. But they're also known to eat some fruits because they live in the Amazon where there's so much growth and so many things.
Probably falls down into the water. And
and anything that falls into the water is fair game to a mouth that big.
Oh my goodness. So when you feed them here, how do you feed them? Do you just, like at home, if you have an aquarium, you sprinkle the food in, would you just sprinkle a bunch of food in here, or how would you feed them?
We can do that. We could just drop food on top of the water and they would catch it. But because there are so many other fish in here, they may not get their fair share of the food. And this may come as a surprise to you, but even these giant fish are not always the biggest and baddest and most aggressive when it comes to eating. So we have to make sure that they get their own share of the food by using a little bit of training for these animals.
Ooh, so when you train them, what does that mean when you train the Arapaima to eat?
We are training them to do two different things. The first one is just for them to come to a specific spot in the exhibit to get their food. We're asking the Arapaima to come to a feeding station. We'll stand on this kind of bridge that goes over top of the exhibit, and we'll drop this white lid, it's a bucket lid, into the water, and they see that white lid and they come straight to it. When they get to it, I drop a piece of food to reward them for coming to where I asked them to come to.
How long does it take to feed this whole exhibit? Because if you're feeding one fish at a time, or is it multiple? It must take a long time.
It does take a few minutes. When we feed this exhibit, we have 2 or 3, sometimes scuba divers in the water, hand feeding the rays, the catfish, and the sturgeon. Then we'll have me or a partner training and feeding the Arapaima. And then we'll have another person standing over here feeding gar, barramundi, and pangasius catfish, and the Asian bony tongues.
Wow, that is really exciting. It seems like it'd be harder to feed them here than it is at home at just a normal aquarium. You gotta have a lot of people on hand to do that.
That's true. It's a lot of people working together at the same time to make sure it gets done properly and everybody gets their food.
Yeah. I know kids always have the question about the scuba divers, whether they're in the river journey or ocean journey, they see scuba divers in the water with the fish. No one can just come in and scuba dive. You have to be trained to scuba dive, and you have to know how to do it and done it a lot of times, correct?
That's right. So for our volunteer divers, you have to be scuba certified, and then we ask that you have 25 dives for practice before you come and dive with us. And additionally, we put you through a test to test your knowledge and your skills.
Okay.
So you'll do a written test about how much you know about scuba diving and safety, and then you'll do a swim test in a pool for us so we can actually watch you dive before we put you into one of our exhibits.
Awesome. Well, I know I always had those questions when I was a kid coming here growing up. So kids, if you want to do that, now you know where to start. So if you want to be a diver at the Tennessee Aquarium, you could do that, but be thinking about it now. Awesome. So the first training thing is called station, and there was a second one, and it is called
stretcher training.
Oh, kids, if you're at the hospital, you've probably heard the word stretcher, like a bed. When we use the beds to move people around the hospital, those are called stretchers.
That's right. So what we're training the Arapaima to do is to get used to swimming into a stretcher and being able to lift them up out of the water. Because remember, these fish are huge and they're really heavy. So we don't have a good way to lift them up by ourselves, or even in a really, really big net would be so heavy. So we are asking them to get used to the stretchers. Swimming into it. So then we can carefully and safely lift these animals out of the water if we ever need to.
So how much do the Arapaima weigh? We know they're 15 foot long, which is big. About how much weight does one get to, or are they here?
That's a great question. We don't even know. They haven't been weighed in a few years because they're so big, and we're trying to get them used to the stretcher. But once we can get them comfortable in it, we can hang that stretcher from a scale and get their weights.
Oh, wow. Kids, if you go to the hospital, you're seeing a doctor. If an animal needs to see a doctor, what do they call it? It's called a veterinarian. So kids, when you guys come to the hospital, you see doctors, or if you go to your doctor's office outside of the hospital, you see a doctor. Well, when fish need to see a doctor, they go see a vet here. So they have veterinarians here, and so a stretcher is used for these big fish to go see a doctor sometimes, or just to do simple things like feed them or get their weight or check them out, just how you guys are coming to the hospital, getting checked out and making sure you're all better and feeling good before we send you home.
That's right. So a lot of times Arapaima might be hanging out down on the bottom of the exhibit, but we need to get a closer look at them. So bringing them up into that stretcher would keep them up at the surface level where our vets can actually see them up close, touch them, feel their bodies, make sure that they feel healthy, and make a really good guess or decision about what kind of care they might need.
Okay, so when they're doing that, do they like it? Do you guys give them anything as a treat? How do you get them to be not so scared?
We do give them treats for doing this because that helps them realize that, okay, this might not be my favorite thing to do, but if I do it, I'm gonna get a delicious snack for coming close to them.
That sounds very similar to what we do at the hospital sometimes. When kids come there and they have to do something scary or not so fun and they do it, we have prizes or a treasure chest, or they get a lollipop or a popsicle. So you can really make some connections how animals are treated and humans are treated. It's really neat. Like, they're rewarded and kids and adults are rewarded for things too. Can you show me the stretcher?
Yes, I can show that to you. If we come over here to this side and you look down, you'll see this blue kind of rectangle here. It's laying flat right now because it's out of the water. And when it's time for a training session, we'll pick that up and drop it into the water so it hangs like a U shape, basically. So then the fish can swim straight into it.
Oh, wow, that's so neat. And another cool thing is I'm here just looking around because it's so exciting. I see this little hand over here. I know it's on a stick, so I'm wondering that might be used for training?
Absolutely it is. It looks a little funny, but it really helps us. We use that hand on a pole to get the Arapaima used to being touched. Sometimes they're a little too low in the stretcher and we can't really reach them, so we invented this tool to help us get them used to being touched, especially under their bellies and areas where it's hard for us to reach around them.
That is so neat. There's two platforms in the water and they're over the water. It looks pretty crazy, but I was wondering, and there's a ladder too. So I was wondering what you guys use these for.
Well, the one that you just saw with the ladder is our diver platform. So that's where the scuba divers enter the water. And we also have someone feeding from this platform when it's feeding time.
Wow. How many times a day do you have to feed these fish? Is it just one time a day, or sometimes breakfast, lunch, and dinner, snacks for kids? How often do they eat?
They wish they got fed that much. This exhibit is fed one time every other day, which may not seem like a lot to you, but for these fish, it's plenty of food. They get fed a lot of food when it's feeding time, so they are all very well fed and cared for.
When they come up to feed every other day, they come up to the top of the water. Do they ever come to the top and out of the water any other times?
They do. This is a really cool fact about Arapaima. They are naturally air breathers. So most fish that you know breathe through the water with their gills. They're using their gills to take oxygen out of the water. But Arapaima's bodies are different. Their gills are really, really, really small and they don't work very well. So they use a different part of their body as a lung, and they'll come up and gulp air, and that's what they're breathing air like you and I are.
Wow.
And they can hold their breath for a good 10 minutes or longer, and they'll just go down and hang out on the bottom for a while.
Wow, that is super cool. Well, I am so thankful that I got to come meet with Rachel today and see these river giants, not just the Arapaima, but all of them. Thank you, Rachel. This is so exciting, and you guys need to come down to the Tennessee Aquarium and see these with your own eyes because they are giant.
They are. They're very cool, and they would love to see you too. So we hope you come visit us soon.